Psychoanalysis every day. The beggar's ecstasy. Namaste. With every day under our microscope, we move into yet another familiar and forgotten area of the smiling beggars. Touchy and delicate, the topic as it is, we enter into it with our guide Himanshu Vaidyaji. Namaste, sir.
Namaste.
It is not only ironic, it can also be seen as inhuman, the very title of our talk.
In a way, yes, because the first understanding that we have is that begging is an unalloyed tragedy. It is one of our worst nightmares. Often, when we think of what catastrophic things can happen to us, one of the thoughts that many people have is that one can lose everything one has and then sit on the street to beg, and people who know you, they throw money at you or make fun of you, and in that humiliating deprivation condition, you finally die. That kind of a catastrophic fantasy is one of the worst nightmares people have. This is something we may not even wish for our enemies. And many families, when they fall into poverty, they prefer to commit suicide than to live the life of a beggar or somebody down in the hierarchy. So it's a completely an unalloyed tragedy. What Schopenhauer would say, endless pain to a painful end, that actually applies to the life of a beggar. He sees the worst of mankind. When you approach any person as a beggar, you see the worst in him. So, this is something where we look at beggars as those who are completely victims of unalloyed tragedy. And for that context, it is true that they are not only disjointed, but far removed from any sense of ecstasy. It's like their life, their feelings, and ecstasy are two different continents, light years apart. So, this is naturally the first understanding that we have. But there is a second, deeper understanding when we actually look at this situation from a more analytic point of view. And there we realize that actually beggars are in two different groups. Those who are into begging out of misfortune and compulsion, and those who are into begging out of choice. The choice may be a choice between bad and worse, but they always have a choice. And some of them actually have a choice even of good and bad. So for them, we are looking at two different groups. The group of beggars who are doing it out of misfortune and compulsion, in their case, there is no ecstasy, it's just suffering all along. But there's another group which is doing it out of choice. Those who are young, those who have an option of doing something else, those who live in low income communities or slums, and just near to their house there is somebody else of the same age, same comparable health, and is doing some hard work, some productive work which they are not doing. So it is the second group that we are focusing upon when we talk of choice. And that is where the whole psychoanalytic idea of torture and reverie related to work that comes up. That this is a group which has chosen begging either because they are stuck in the torture ecstasy continuum. And what is that and why is it so and why they are stuck, we'll take a look at it in a few moments from now. But they are stuck in that psychoanalytic problem of torture reverie continuum. That is why they have chosen begging. Or there are some who are too lazy and therefore they have chosen begging. Or there are some who are very greedy and cunning and therefore they have chosen begging. So it is this spectrum of people who have chosen begging out of different motivations that we will be taking a look at, and especially our title is more focused on those who have taken to begging out of being fixated, psychoanalytically speaking, on the reverie torture continuum.
Can we pause for a minute?
Yeah. We can continue.
Yes, sir. Sir, your volume.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, sir. So you just mentioned that there are certain beggars who are by choice, and that is where the topic is situated for the day.
Right.
We're talking about the secret ecstasy hidden beneath the weeping faces, the
Correct.
dried, hungry faces. Can you elaborate on it?
Um, you can look at them when they're sitting with their um, family members or their friends in a corner taking rest, and just look at them how happy or how sad they are. And you can see very clearly that when they are actively not performing the role, not actively involved in their job, so to say, you can see the laughter, you can see the mischief, you can see the giggle and the play between them, like any happy human beings that you can see. Secondly, many of them actually try to work for some time. It is not that they never try to work. They often take up a job because everyone pressurizes them to work. They often take up the job, but they realize it's so torturous to be on the job. They can't make out why, because the reasons are too far deep in the unconscious. But the very duration of the job 10 to 5, every moment seems so torturous that they just can't take it and they leave the job very soon. And they are caught in what we call the um, torture and reverie continuum. Now, this happens when, after the experience of primary narcissism, suddenly you experience a loss. And you are not able to move slowly from primary narcissism to a diluted form of reverie, to slowly giving up the reverie and entering the world of work and transferring some of this pleasure into the pleasure of shouldering responsibility and achievement at work. This transfer does not take place, which organically should. And therefore, what happens is from a state of reverie, one state straight away goes into a state of torture. And that has to do with the split being open and the Oedipus not resolved. Because the early life loss leads to the split remaining open, and with that open split, when you go into the Oedipus, that itself gets into trouble. So that man who is now entering the workforce as an adult has these issues unresolved, and these projections and the unconscious things that make the authority figure seem terrible to him. And I am not good enough makes the whole prospect of working and accomplishing the work terrible. So it's catastrophic. Even a small work given to him becomes an unsurmountable challenge with horrifying consequences. So every work, smallest of work given to him becomes something catastrophic and unbearable. Every interaction or potential interaction with authority figures becomes difficult. And the constant fear of being attacked by colleagues or anybody else, that makes the whole experience torturous. On top of it, there is this narcissism, which also comes from that early loss, and I am not good enough, where one believes that it is he who deserves to be at the top, and there is severe unbearable envy of the person at the top, and an impatient drive to go slowly and reach the top. One wants to jump suddenly to the top. So all this makes the person completely unfit for the job. And now he knows only two states. Whenever work is given, it is torture. And when the work is not given or completed, he is into reverie. So now he knows only two states. He can't work with peace He can't work with happiness. He can't see work as an opportunity. He sees work only as a threat. And when he sits all alone, he dreams grand of doing some great work. But the moment he starts and encounters reality, the grand dream of doing some work goes away and he falls into that torture part of the continuum. So this cycle goes on of grand dreams followed by attempting at work, experiencing unbearable torture, giving it up. And this cycle, once it goes 2 or 3 times, you don't dare to do it again. And then you go back to reverie forever. And that over a period of times becomes addictive. And then slowly your capabilities erode and it corrodes you completely from inside. And after some age, you just can't go back. So this is where the uh, addiction comes on. And it has two components of reverie and primary narcissism. And on the threat side, the split, the Oedipus, the catastrophic thinking, and of constant attacks. So this, on one hand, you are giving up something very pleasant. On the other hand, you are experiencing something completely unbearable. Therefore, ultimately, you give it up. And many of such people actually get out of the organizations into more independent work if they are highly qualified. And later on, after some age, when they are at the mid or top level, they re-enter the organizational workforce because now they are themselves authority figures. But in case of beggars in low income, low education community, that opportunity often is not there. So they remain in that state of reverie, stuck forever. And often it can get into other addictions also.
Beggars being an integrated part of the society, especially in developing countries like India, where every street is full of them. How has society projected them beyond psychoanalysis? Is there a reference to it in art?
Yes, in art, very dramatic references of somebody being a beggar and yet being very powerful. You can see that in Chinese movies. A great kung fu master is actually roaming around as a beggar. Hmm.
Yes.
In mm, many movies, you see somebody like a beggar and some rich girl falling for him, or somebody like a beggar turning out to be a great spiritual master. So those dramatic depictions, romanticized depictions of a beggar, they are always there. It's like somebody made a very popular Hindi movie, Umrao Jaan. And those who saw the movie, they said the director of the film is a gentleman. He has never actually been to a red light area because what he is showing is completely different than what actually one experiences. It's a very romanticized, dramatized version of it. So the same thing happens, uh, like the archetypical character of a crazy man, the archetypical character of a beggar also is romanticized in art. One famous, very popular depiction I can remember is in Sherlock Holmes. There is a story,
Mm-hmm.
if I remember correctly, the title, I think it is The Empty House. Maybe some other title, but I
Okay.
think it is this title, The Empty House. The story is this. There is an educated person who I think is a reporter or somebody, and he is asked to prepare a report on some people in a particular area. And this man feels
Mm.
that the best way to get information is to sit in that area on a footpath as a beggar. So what he does is he hires a room in that area. He leaves his house, goes to this room, changes his clothes, puts on the entire makeup of a beggar, and sits there on the footpath, watching everything and preparing his report. Now, as he sits on the footpath, people take pity and throw some money at him. And after a few days, he gets this idea, why not make it more spicy? So what he does is he dresses slightly better, puts his hat upside down to collect money, and starts speaking quotes from Shakespeare and Milton. And everyone feels that he is somebody who comes from a very good educational background, very good family. Some misfortune must have fallen upon him. He is one of us. Although he is begging at the moment, he is one of us. And they respectfully give money. And they give a lot of money because they don't see him as a beggar anymore. They see him as an incidental beggar. And that brings him so much of money that he leaves the job and makes this his full-time job. So every day he comes there and changes his dress, does the impersonation of a beggar and goes back. And once when he was changing the clothes or something, his wife sees him. And then he escapes from there and some the story goes on. The point I was referring to was that it can become so profitable and you enjoy the reverie of doing nothing, that this man must have in him the psychoanalytic roots to really enjoy reverie and allow it to become an addiction and not allow self-respect and ethics to come in the way of earning money this way. So in the art world, we find various references to romanticizing the beggar, and often it is because the beggar experiences some form of reverie, some form of profit, some form of romantic drive inside of him.
Very interesting. Usually, as you were mentioning prior in different mythological episodes in many of the literature books, we have also seen how in spiritual world these fakirs and Sufis and even in that case the Buddhist monks, they have been or even in the education system back there at the time of Ramayana and all, they were asked to go on the streets and ask for so is there in particular spirituality a reference to this subject as what we are discussing, or it's just they are trying to make it all inclusive in the society, what it is about?
Yeah. So when we say voluntarily embracing of begging, there are two components of it. One is you do it out of material compulsion and psychological compulsion. And second, you do it as a part of your spiritual practice. So, as a part of our spiritual practice, we always had begging go hand in hand with the reverie. The carefree life of the person who has nothing to protect because he has nothing that he has accumulated. Aparigraha, as we call it, not to accumulate anything. And there is a very different kind of a happiness and bliss one experiences when one is not concerned about protecting anything. When one is free from his attachments not being spread out over his material possessions and the constant fear of losing them. Because material possessions always bring the constant fear of losing them or something happening to them. So, one is the carefree element, that one is free of the cares of property or preserving property. And therefore, one is also free from the whole hassle of earning money to make that property. And in a way, you are free from reality in psychoanalytic terms. And you are back to the state of reverie and primary narcissism. Now, the spiritual practice essentially is to overcome the ego in the spiritual sense, not in the psychoanalytic sense, overcome that ego and experience, even in the most deprived states, materially deprived states, the state of ecstasy, the state of happiness, and overcome the narcissistic ego that one has. It's a narcissism overcoming exercise. So that is one part. The second part is often people experience ecstasy in different shades and colors of it when they give up their objects, because there is a constant fear of losing objects or having the objects damaged if they keep them. Many people have this fear and therefore they don't accumulate anything. They give it away as gifts or to somebody else. The moment you buy a new object, many people find it uncomfortable. You buy a new cloth, a new refrigerator, a new car, and instead of celebrating, they actually get angry. And that is because they are terrified of what will happen to this new good object of theirs. Will they lose it? Will it get damaged? And this refers to their early childhood fantasy of the objects of investment being lost or the objects of emotional investment being damaged. And often they have a guilt, it is because of them. So the fear of loss or the fear of damage of invested objects, that goes away completely when you give it up. Third, many Sufi orders, Christian mystics, and even Hindu orders embrace poverty, and they want to rely completely on existence. So it's also a part of surrender, and that surrender also brings relief from reality and also brings in the element of ecstasy. So the idea there is not of compulsion but of spiritual practice. The idea is of perfecting surrender. The idea is of letting go of object attachments. And the idea is of having two different extreme states experienced together. Extreme deprivation of the material area and extreme happiness of the inner area. The inner area happiness is implanted in that difficult situation of material deprivation. So, and it's also a very good technique to overcome whatever attachment or liking one has to people, because the moment you go begging, you see the worst form of people, worst face of them, and then it's very easy to give them up. So, we see in different spiritual areas, begging is not stigmatized as it is in normal society. Rather, it's a part of their spiritual practice, and there is a linkage to ecstasy experience in that act in a very different form. There is a very old
Is that
popular.
spiritual version actually of undoing of this aspect of theirs if it is left in them? Other
I-
than that, the why it has been included in spiritual practices? If we see psychoanalytically, what purpose it does? Is it that it cleanses this particular channel which is there in a pathological form, or is it to do with just just to bring your ego down? What exactly it is?
It's a cure to narcissism. It's a
Mm.
cure to attachment to material possessions. It's a conscious tapping of states of reverie and primary narcissism, even in the most deprived and difficult circumstances. And it's also a test for facing your own fear of death. Because once you give up everything, the fear of survival always comes up. So, all these difficult parts are addressed in some way or the other, and you pass through that and you steel yourself up. And you try to make that primary narcissism part and the reverie part or parts of them consciously implanting into everyday life as far as you can go. And the ultimate objective is to make that a background in the front of which everything goes on, but the background remains unchanged, unmoved. That's of course an ideal.
So basically, in spirituality, if we use the verbiage of psychoanalysis, this is how it translates into.
Right. Right. So we are looking at object loss phenomena, you're looking at narcissism, you're looking at reality acceptance, you're looking at capacity development for facing deprivation, you're looking at integration of two extreme states, and you're looking at making your happiness as causeless as possible. All of this go on.
Surely not everyone trapped in the same complexes is a beggar.
Yeah.
So, what alternative professions would they usually take up?
If you look at all professions, they will go from least reverie to highest reverie. So those who have very high ego strength and very high reality acceptance, those who have been able to transfer the joy of primary narcissism and reverie onto work, they will be on the least reverie side. These are those who are into high stress jobs. They are the project managers, they are the businessmen, they are the policemen, they are the security personnel, they are the lawyers, the good lawyers. So they are the doctors, these are high stress jobs. And on the other extreme, and of course people are in between, but other extreme is high reverie jobs, which by and large usually don't pay you so much. And people do it because they are addicted to that reverie and they are terrified of the torture, because somewhere, to some degree, they are fixated in that reverie torture continuum. And who are these people? What are these jobs? Take the examples of a guide made very popular by Devanand's movie Guide. Hmm. But the guide's job
Yes.
is one of those high reverie jobs. You don't have to do much, you have to know it just once, and you have to go with people who are in good mood, who are not in very demanding mood, and have good food, uh, good conversations, good money often. So guide job is one such job. The job of an astrologer, the
Mm.
job of share market player. Often if you go to share market brokers, you will find people who sit there all day sipping tea and cigarettes and often make some trades on the share market. They don't want to do any real work. Right? So they are also those who are caught in that reverie and the trap of easy money. And many of them actually lose everything that they have because of this addiction of reverie and the terror of work. Then you have a very important thing, salesmen who don't work and sit in the park in the afternoon. This is very interesting. I have been through these parks, so I know it firsthand. If you go to public parks, municipality parks, usually, at least in Ahmedabad, they usually open at 11 o'clock and they go on till 8 o'clock at night. And at about 12 o'clock, the salesmen start arriving. Many of those who don't want to work hard. Those who want to work hard, get the incentive, get the promotion, they are different. I'm talking of those people who are forced into a low reverie job when in fact they actually a high reverie person. Right? And if you force them into it, they will develop psychological issues or psychosomatic issues. But many of them actually don't get forced. So what they do is they start at 9:30, they do some work, and after 12 o'clock, they come into the park and don't do anything till 4 o'clock.
Mm.
And they just sit there. And over a period of time, the benches also belong to people. Like one person comes and sits, sleeps on one particular bench. It's almost like their personal property kind of thing. And then they start knowing each other. Then they know that 2 o'clock they will go together to have a cup of tea. So all those, so to say, good for nothing people, they get together in the parks in the afternoon. And you will see medical representatives, you will see industrial sales people, you will see all kind of sales people who are there. So they are also the third profession. The fourth is auto drivers who just stand in front of schools and colleges looking at women. So even though they make less money, the whole reverie of being in that state, which many of them could not actually anytime do in their lives, not go to the college and so on. So they fulfill whatever fantasies they have. Then you have those two trip drivers. Instead of driving rickshaw the whole day, they will go to the airport and do only 2 trips a day, 2 big trips. Then we have unemployed vagabonds who do nothing even though they are young but just roam around. Then we have people who are so-called consultants who use the name of a consultant but actually are not doing much. Occasionally they do something to pay the monthly bills, but most of the time they are in reverie. And they have become consultants because they are unfit for organizational life. And this includes some highly educated people. I was a
Mm.
part of this group, the group of management consultants. Hmm. And
Okay.
uh, all of them were highly educated. Most of them even had PhDs in management and extremely intelligent people. I have not seen such an intelligent and talented group in terms of professional communities in India other than that group. But psychologically, they were
Mm.
all misfits for organizations. And they were here because of this thing. The fixation in the reverie torture continuum, the inability to get along with others, narcissism, and envy. Then we have so-called voluntarily unemployed who go after government dole-outs, the social security parasites. And then we also have healers who use the word of healers in Reiki, prani killing, but they don't do anything actually. They hardly work 1 or 1.5 hours a day. And they are most of the time in their dreams and reverie. So these are some of the professions, and I'm sure there will be many others, where those who are caught in this continuum have unresolved problems in them of split, of Oedipus, of catastrophic thinking, of projection, and of fear of attack, envy and narcissism, and impatience. All of uh, these groups, they get divided into various professions. And you can see them, uh, whatever face they put up, whatever story they put up in the front, at the back, they are actually caught in this pathological continuum. So, like the beggars, it's not that they are the only ones caught in this continuum. Just as they experience the reverie and ecstasy, there are many others who are addicted to the same thing, but are in different professions. And because of this secret unconscious dynamic, they try to turn their working profession to the extent possible to that of reverie.
That takes me to a very interesting understanding. Just see how it fits here, sir. Like there was an era post independence when there was less of employment and there was more of unemployment around. And those were the times, even in many of the short stories written by the great literature people, and movies were also based on that. There, where would they show that calm chore or vela insan who's not doing anything, who's not willing to. And now there is this era again where there's so much of job opportunities, but digitalization has converted and made lifestyles and work styles very sedentary. So it is very easy to slip into this reverie
Correct.
owing to one's inertia and the cultural inertia. How would the
Correct.
societal aspect feed into this reverie or vice versa?
Societal aspect is very important because, say, for example, in China, there is almost like a psychological epidemic where a large section of the young population refuses to do anything. Right? And that has to do with a lot of disappointments, anger, unresolved psychological issues, and so on. Second, as you rightly said, the sedentary lifestyle can easily lead one to slipping into reverie. Third is prosperity and security of life. It's no longer as hard to survive as it used to be, and childhood is far more pampered than before. So all these aspects actually predispose you to seek out the addiction of reverie and give up on hard work.
So, how can one ethically evaluate this phenomenon?
Two ways of doing it. One is utilitarian and one is existential. If utilitarian ethics is used, then people are just avoiding work because of their weakness and they are dead weight upon the society and they should be punished for it so that it does not become a norm. They are parasites and nothing more. So this is one way of looking at it. The second way of looking at it is existential, which says that life is far more than producing economic value. And there is an aspect of life which is unique to every individual, and you are nobody to prescribe to anybody how he should live and what values should he follow. In that light, it is not necessary that everyone should fit into the corporate mold. In fact, when the company started in the industrial revolution and people joined from village to the companies and the companies said 10 to 5, everyone actually called it slavery because 10 to 5 was never the job kind of pattern. People used to work mostly into handicraft sector at one's own pace and one's own convenience. And in the farms, it used to be more related to the sowing and the harvesting season. This 10 to 5, 365 was never a normal human phenomena, which has got normalized, unfortunately. So, in that sense, I don't criticize those who beg because if I was to fall in the same economic situation, instead of being a maid somewhere or doing construction work, I would also prefer to beg. So in that sense, I don't see it as unalloyed wrong from an existential point of view, that the capitalist systems and the nation state system has actually usurped all the natural property, the lands, the forests. Otherwise, all those who are into this category, they would have lived off happily in the forest doing nothing. Right? So that option, natural option, we have taken away. And this force that everyone has to be a corporate person, that is not something which is natural or even ethically correct. So from existential ethical standpoint, there is nothing wrong. It is a way in the world one finds to roll on with his life.
But when we see when there is this freedom of existential ethics lens, people will lack the object gains, the achievement, the sense of drive within them, and they get into addictions, crimes, many other aspects.
Very correct. So this brings us to the whole idea of optimizing it. And the way forward is, can we create no hierarchy, more voluntary, 4 day a week, 4 hour kind of jobs, preferably work from home or work at your own pace. That can be an optimum for this group of people between the two extremes, both of which are difficult. Uh,
So, is there a way out?
yeah, exactly this. That the 4 day, 4 hour week with low stress, low hierarchy jobs. That can be a
How
possible
about parenting so that this phenomena is well taken care of in schooling
very,
and in parenting?
yeah, that's very important. Schooling and parenting, especially the early life, it also will take us to almost licensing parenting, because the first 3 years are where the continuum is gets created. So at family, teaching the parents, and at school, doing something remedial so that people don't get fixated here. That's the more fundamental long-term cure.
Isn't it this reverie very much that of a small newly born baby?
It is. It never leaves us, and we are always in search of it.
Stirring up controversial but humane and productive. The conversation was for me and hope for the viewers too. Hope you like it. See you all again. Namaste.
Namaste.